We'll have special guests from the cast and crew of The Wheel of Time. Plus, we'll be sharing behind-the-scenes footage and digging into Episode 6 with our fellow Wheel of Time fans. And don't forget, stick around for a look at next week's episode. Welcome to Amazon's official after show, Inside the Wheel of Time. I'm your host and innkeeper, Matt Hatch. The Amyrlin waits only for this woman. Let's get inside Episode 6. The Amyrlin seat sentences Logan, and White Tower politics lead to Moiraine's exile. Mat's darkness is revealed, and the Dark One stirs at the Eye of the World. Nynaeve and Egwene face Siuan Sanche, and our Two Rivers friends reunite, but Mat refuses to enter the Waygate. What awaits them in the ways? I am so glad I have Daniel Henney, who plays the renowned warrior and warder Lan Mandragoran, to discuss how it all went down. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Daniel. Really appreciate you being here. How you doing?
Doing well, enjoying life in Prague.
What appealed to you about the fantasy genre, the Wheel of Time in specific, that made you want to embrace this journey?
Well, I think I was always a fantasy fan, maybe not in the traditional sense, because where I grew up it was a very small Midwestern town, 900 people. We have like hitching posts for Amish buggies at our supermarkets. Nice. And so we didn't have access to I don't remember anyone talking about Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, but I was always that kid in my yard, sort of tacking two tree branches together to make a sword and pretending I was protecting a princess and saving a kingdom and riding a black steed, which was usually my black lab. Unfortunately for Max, my black lab, I was riding him. But it was my dream, to be in something like this. And I was on a show for 5 years and I was ready for something new. And this was new, different, and challenging. Aside from that, obviously with the source material, the scripts are fantastic. The personnel behind this, working with all these amazing actors. Rosamund, we crossed paths before, but I was a huge fan of hers and still am. So it was a no-brainer for me. And it's an absolute privilege for me to jump into the boots of Mr. Mandragoran.
Yeah, could you imagine when you were that kid that your first foray into fantasy was going to be for Lan? You are the greatest warrior in fantasy fiction now.
As I started my career, I still held that sort of little boy's dream in my head. But I ended up playing a lot of roles that were wonderful, but a lot of agents and doctors. And, I guess I never thought I'd have the chance to play someone like Lan. The Wheel of Time came along and it changed everything for me. So I just feel so thankful and privileged.
How's it been to kind of dig into the material and get to know Lan a little bit more intimately than in other roles you have?
It's just to have that material is such a blessing. Right. Just the endless source material, seemingly endless. It's 4 million some odd words.
Something, yeah.
It's tricky, though, because when you read the books, he reads a certain way. You can get in trouble sometimes as an actor wanting to perform the way you read him in the books. And so it's been a real journey for me and also for the directors and writers to understand that these characters are now living, breathing, full-fledged human characters. And they have emotions and they have ups and downs. They have wants, needs, and loves. And so that's been an interesting journey.
What are you hoping for viewers to understand about this unique connection that Lan and Moiraine have?
Well, it's kind of twofold. We want the viewers to understand sort of logistically what the bond means. Rosamund and I worked very hard to try to find spaces and areas where that would come across, where they feel each other's grief, pain, physical pain, mental pain. We're kind of like identical twins, how they can feel things from the other twin, whether one is fearing something or in pain. We wanted to get that across. But on a different level, we wanted people to feel this sort of love that is, in our opinion, very different for a man and woman that may not have been seen on screen before. And if nothing more, we hope that the audience will have some questions and kind of be like, what's going on with these two? So we want that. We want those sort of curiosities there from the audience.
We all know this as readers, but new viewers won't have known this before. The loss of that bond itself is devastating, especially to warders. We see this in Karina and Stepin's death. What is Lan thinking about his own bond with Moiraine after that experience?
That was something we felt that was, very exciting to put into the show. We know that Moiraine's on a very dangerous journey. Lan and Moiraine both see their potential mortality. They see that this could end the same way. They're seeing a mirror image of what could happen to them play out before their eyes. With Lan, especially with someone that he, in my opinion, sees as a mentor and father figure. and someone that has been a part of his life for a very long time. And the way it's done with the sort of harakiri sort of suicide, it's just so shocking. I think that was our attempt at showing how high the stakes are for these two in their relationship and how deep that bond is.
When you're kneeling next to Stepan at his funeral, there's this intensely personal moment for you that comes across on screen. How did you prepare for that moment and that scene?
It took weeks of preparation for that and a really good playlist. Finding some quiet space on set where I could go, and Sally, the director, was great, and she gave me that space. As an actor, you dream of having chances like that to sort of stretch your emotional wings and really give it a go, but it was also very scary because it was in front of like 30 or 40 people and other actors that I respect a great deal, and it was kind of like an action land. It was tricky. I wanted to find the right balance, and hopefully we did. I didn't want to press it too far, but I wanted to make sure that that sort of guttural grief was present, and in that context, he's the one who's grieving for everyone. And also, I think it boosted the sense of what the bond means because Moiraine could feel that. And even though she wasn't supposed to be necessarily crying in that scene, she couldn't help herself because she was feeling that moment. And so it was a really tough, challenging, beautiful day.
Unlike a lot of other fantasy shows, we aren't in the world of kings and queens. We are in the world of ordinary farmers and peasants. We had a very strong feeling that music should have a kind of country feel to it. It drives the story along, it underlines without overpowering the way we feel when we're watching something.
So they've finally made it to Tar Valon, as Critter wanted. So I can't wait to talk about this with my wonderful guests today, Critter, Ridima, and Daniel Green. Thank you so much for being back. Can't wait to break down episode 6. And maybe to kick us off here, what was your kind of biggest highlight coming out of episode 6?
I've really wanted to see Tower politics brought to life for a while, and what this episode showed to us was kind of perfectly from the books, just double back-talking while avoiding lies that end up being not what you think. Oh, and there's a triple. It's all kinds of confusing, and I just really love seeing that kind of interplay of agendas weaving together oh so smoothly, and we have a relationship reveal that is hinted at in the books and brought forth to the full light here during the era it was published. That wasn't something a lot of publishers were eager to put forth, but it seemed like Jordan did the best he could to at least have things like pillow friends, and it just seems appropriate to update it to times to have things like those relationships brought to the forefront. And as someone who's recently discovered I'm bi, my mother's gay, like, you know, it's just nice to see the representation there to the forefront, not treated as a background kiss, as so many other shows and stuff do. It just finally felt like, hey, it's representation, it's not forced, it actually fits something that's in the book, and we're happy with it. And I like that at the end of all the Tower negotiations that are going on in the trial that happens and stuff, we see Moiraine, at least in my opinion, go very frustratedly to Matt and just take out some of her aggression by just removing this vile thing from him and just taking it and okay, I'm done now. It's just a really nice little bit for her character, and I feel like we got a lot from the Moiraine character that I've been wanting to see for a while.
I think for this episode, my biggest highlight was whenever Moiraine used a ter'angreal or magicked herself over to Swan, and then all of a sudden this beautiful relationship came to light that they were hiding. That's obviously part of Tower politics, is they didn't want anybody to know that they were in cahoots. Book readers knew, but nobody else knew, and I'm hoping that it was just as exciting for them as it was for everyone of us who read the books who were waiting for it.
I mean, for those of you that are watching out there, if you don't know what a ter'angreal is, it's an object that uses the one power to do something.
It's basically going to allow certain Aes Sedai to achieve things through weaves that maybe have been forgotten to history, because many of them are ancient artifacts, and you just have to channel into them. And now we have gateways popping up.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's such an interesting piece. I'm sure maybe a little bit confusing, even confusing to me. I was like, oh, this is like theory territory.
My favorite part of the books was always like the juicy Aes Sedai drama and them just like backstabbing. Watching it on the screen felt like, finally, like this is what I've been waiting for this whole time. I just loved it. It was like this idea that this power can come to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a lady like Moiraine or if you're just a small fisher girl from a tiny town. You can become the Amyrlin seat. I love this episode.
Yeah, I mean, while we're here talking about Tower politics, we have to ask this question. For those fans out there that are maybe coming to get to know the Aja, which Aja are you?
I've always been a blue. I relate to Moiraine and Swan because she was blue before she was elevated.
Straight up black. Let's talk about that another time.
I definitely think I'm a brown Aja. I'm pretty introverted, and if you leave me in the tower, I will absolutely just like stay in the library the whole time and read all of their histories, just immerse myself in that world.
Before we move on from Tower politics, I want to ask you about this. Logain's sentencing. He's been gentled. He's brought before the Amyrlin. What was your reaction to this critter?
It was really intense. I thought at first, like, wow, he's coming on really strong for a guy who's just been gentled, because as we've heard, whenever you get gentled, you kind of lose your will to live. I'm wondering if that's because he expected them to kill him, and so this was just his last hurrah, his last breath before whatever was going to happen to him. But then it completely changed the whole dynamic whenever she said, no, you're not going to get death. You're gonna live and be an example. The look on his face, it was like night and day. I thought he did such a good job. And yeah, I felt really bad for him because as far as we saw, he seemed like a complicated but sort of relatable guy. And I know Daniel has feelings on this as well. But yeah, so it was really intense, but I think, Alvaro Morte did an incredible job.
Daniel, Logan did nothing wrong, huh? Is that where you're at?
Hashtag Logan did nothing wrong for many reasons. One, as the Amyrlin says to his face, now that he's stilled, he doesn't even need to be in chains. He is completely harmless. So already we've established this man is done as being a false dragon. From there, they add insult to injury, not only not really giving him a trial, I didn't see a lawyer, but on just sentencing him outright in front of everyone on his knees, kneeling to a position of power he doesn't respect, as he says. And he doesn't even get to make a case for himself. He's just put in a closet or whatever they're going to keep him in forever. No end, no possibility of parole.
You don't think that speech was his making a case for himself? And it wasn't a great case. Wasn't very strong.
I respect what case that he made, but the excuse he had to his case was just to clap back at the tower, which really he knew he wasn't going to get a fair trial, so I think that's a very reasonable way to go. Just get in the insults while you can.
Okay, so now that we've kind of seen this moment with Logan and the Amyrlin, we understand the depth of the relationship now between Moiraine and Swan. The exile. Did that hit any of you when you saw Moiraine swear an oath to that exile?
Even though we know that Swan and Moiraine are in on it, you definitely get this sense that Moiraine is genuinely sad to be leaving the tower. I love that they included a scene of her just kind of looking out over North Harbor. You can tell that she's kind of enjoying this while she can. Even though, she says it's not her home, I imagine she has a very intense connection to this place that taught her how to channel and gave her all this power. She might not say it's her home, but she definitely has a connection. So to have that connection severed, even though, she was in on it, it was a very emotional moment.
The most impactful moment in that whole scenario for me was when she was actually swearing the oath and she added lines, and it was those lines that we've heard before, like daughter of the river. That made my heart explode, honestly. It was just so sweet, and she was saying it quiet, so presumably nobody else but Swan could hear. She was basically just swearing herself to the person that she loves anyways. I was really, really into it, but of course, seeing all this tower politicking at the end when she's until the mother calls me back home or whatever, I was here we go. Just wait until Swan calls her back and easy peasy, the oath is gone,
Now, Daniel, I want to jump back and talk about Matt's healing. We finally get this knowledge that he has been infected by something.
I'm wondering what people who haven't read the books were thinking up until that point, because they didn't hint at it or at least directly connect it for at least trying to put my headspace in that of a new viewer to the dagger until then. So I'm wondering what percentage of people knew that connection before it was made all the clearer. I think my favorite moment in the entire episode is when Rand tries to step in the way and Lan just paddles him for it. I actually expected to see a spank come in at the end there. It was pretty hey, down boy. But it became very disease-like very rapidly, and that's, I think, that's to the credit in how they're representing the corruption and evil in this world. We don't know if they're maintaining the distinction between the evil of Shadar Logoth and the evil of Dark One for the show yet, but at least in the book they're supposed to be different, and the taint seems to be moving differently than this more creature-like substance that came out of Matt and then tongued Moiraine. That's nasty.
We actually do get a Two Rivers reunion somewhat here at the end of this episode up at the Waygate. How did this go over for you, and what were any shocks or kind of surprises for you as the episode ended?
First of all, my little Rand-Egwene shipper heart was very happy to see Rand and Egwene back together. They're so sweet together. Definitely Matt getting left behind, or choosing to stay behind, was kind of a huge shock to me. Like, I was not expecting that at all.
Do you have any speculation? Like, what's going to happen with Matt now?
Well, I think we do see a shot of Padden Fane. He's in Tar Valon. So there's something sneaky going on with Padden Fane for sure. And we do have this sort of indication that Matt may be flirting with the Dark One a little bit. Or is he?
Interesting.
We don't know.
This is so hard because Matt, again, is like one of my favorite characters. I think it would make for a compelling story if he did go a little dark. Obviously, I don't want him to, but Moiraine's suggestion, that if he ever gets the dagger again, then he's probably just gone. And the fact that it feels like she's kind of discounting him just offhand, no, I don't like this. He's more inclined to be a dark friend or aligned with the Dark One than everybody else. I hate that because it's not his fault. He had the dagger. He was in Shatter Logoth. He got corrupted there.
It's not his fault he picked up the dagger?
I don't want to talk about it. It probably was. But he, he's had such a rough life. And of course he would see something pretty and be like, ooh, I could sell this and give it to my sisters, I'm really, really torn because I heart Matt Coffin.
It seems like they're definitely making him lean more towards the dark than the books had at any point. And I kind of enjoy that to an extent. He's making me laugh in one scene, and then in the next, I'm like, is he going to murder more children? Emphasis on the possibly more. It's really an impressive display from writing and performance to see it come across so smoothly.
Any other final moments there when it comes to episode 6 that stand out to you?
I just have to say, Swan is played so beautifully by Sophie Okonedo. She reminds me of my mom. My mom is the most authoritative, assertive person I know. Seeing Swan and addressing these girls very calmly, but also with a lot of steel to her, that to me is what Swan is all about.
One scene that just kind of sealed home to me that they were really going to nail the tower politics was just when we had the Red Sister, after Moiraine kind of got her back, not get hers, and then end up saying oh, you expected me to thank you for saying what you did? That's the tower, where it's extremely cutthroat always. It's not a place of safety, even for the Aes Sedai. It's a spider's web, and you gotta navigate it.
Okay, so my favorite line was whenever Lan and Moiraine came in, and Rand tried to protect him with his sword, and Lan's just like, what are you doing? And Matt said, bless his heart, he tries. If you know anything about Rand, you know that line applies to him throughout the entire series. So that was my favorite. I thought it was great, and just a little bit of foreshadowing for the rest of what we're going to see.
Thank you all for sharing all those favorite moments, quotes, and I'm really, really interested in knowing what viewers out there think about who's Liandrin been meeting on the side, what's going to happen to Matt, and what's going to happen on the other side of that Waygate. So thank you so much for being here with us, breaking down episode 6, and I cannot wait to have you back to break down episode 7. Thank you, Rhythma, Critter, and Daniel for being here with us. Until next time.
Here we are, just completing shooting in the Two Rivers, and I found out just now that this morning this whole arena here was an enormous puddle. The art department had to lay down an entire new floor.
3, 2, 1, action!
I read the script and I was captivated. It's as if the world we know has been blown apart at the seams and reassembled, and all bets are off, the rules are all different.
You're not the type of woman that hears no often.
I am not. And that was very intriguing to me, to be that person who you don't know whether to trust or be wary of. It's creepy, you're creepy. You're really creepy. Generally the projects I've been involved with, where there's a good energy among the cast and crew, people feel that. It puts a magic on screen. This is the magic that happens.
Now I got to step out of the world a little bit and ask you this. You've been inside the mind of a warder, though. Would you ever want to be that close to a human being in real life?
Yeah, it's a real privilege, and to become that close with someone and to share that level of intimacy with someone the way a warder and Aes Sedai share their lives together. I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to share your life with someone, to share your intimate moments, to share your fears and goals and aspirations, and swear to be there for someone, to protect them through thick and thin, and to give your life for someone. I mean, to actually say I'd give my life for someone, that's huge. And I do have people in my life that I would, and I'm very happy that I do.
I'm feeling that now. I'm like, oh, wow, I am bonded, aren't I?
everyone after watching this conversation is going to go home and say, "Who would I give my life for?"
yeah. It'd be like,
I their guess. Dog, looking at them.
About the actual physicality of your work, you've had the opportunity to work with the stunt team, and
yep.
I'm kind of curious. Do you have a memorable moment with the crew on set that you can share with us?
I think the most memorable moment on set was between Rosamund and I during the action sequence, which is kind of interesting. We'd worked on the choreography for a month, and we had it planned out, but we had one night halfway through the shoot where it was getting pretty chilly. It was about 4 a.m. We had this sort of sequence where she's using the one power, and I'm creating space for her to use the one power, and I mistimed a step, and she kind of mistimed a lean, and I use a real sword in the sequences for balance. I can't use a plastic one. I have to use aluminum. And I sliced her hand, and I just heard her, when it's cold, it's worse, right? When it's super cold. And I felt blade on bone. Then I heard her shriek, and I just thought, oh my God, there goes our show. And so she fell to the ground, and the stunt crew came around. I jumped over her to check and see if she was okay. She's super tough, by the way. She's super tough. And we had like about 10 minutes of silence, and she got up, and I looked at her. I said, "Emergency room?" She goes, "Yeah, let's go." And so we jumped in an ambulance and went to the nearest hospital in the middle of this rural Czech town. And we had to like wake up the hospital staff because they hadn't seen a patient in like a week. And we woke them up, and we had just me and Rosamund Pike, and we're running through the hallway, and we woke up the x-ray tech and got her hand on the x-ray table. And long story short, it was not broken. We both thought it was, but it wasn't. But that was our biggest warder Aes Sedai bonding moment at that small hospital at 5 a.m. in the Czech Republic.
That is quite the story. Yeah, I can't even imagine what everyone was feeling in that moment. So it's so great that everyone's okay.
Yeah, I thought for sure I'd broken her, at least a finger, maybe a wrist, but luckily she's very tough.
Maybe the last question here in my mind is just, how has this been different than your expectations over the last 2 years?
Well, I don't know that it's been different. I think when you get a role like this, it's a dream role, and you have high expectations. I think the only thing that's been surprising is that they've been met, and sort of even we've gone further than the expectations. I always wanted to be a part of a production that took everything so seriously, that we were so taken care of, and that with a role like Lan, so much is expected of him. And I'm very self-directed, and I'll do so much by myself, but to have the sort of this amazing cloud of this production and this team under me has been amazing. I'm talking like, horse riding lessons 3 times a week, sword mastery 3 times a week, then dialect coach, and then, if we need anything else, whether it's mental health help or, nutrition, it's all right there for us. So that's really surpassed my expectations. You just feel very taken care of, which makes it easier for you to do your job. I think I'm really excited about the direction we've taken the characters emotionally, and I think it makes a very exciting and beautiful show. So that makes me very happy.
What is it about that's important on the emotional journey side? It seems like important to you that they get that right. Like, why is that?
Well, I'm happy that they're taking risks. It only creates a deeper bond, no pun intended, between the viewers and these characters as they see sort of what their connections are to life and their relationships are to life. It's important for us to see Lan's connection with his fellow warders. So when the new viewers go back and they read the books, they'll understand more about how difficult his journey is forward. So these risks are calculated, but they're there for a reason, and it's really beautiful, I think, how they've which ones they've chosen to take with the characters.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. You know me, I could do this all day.
You're welcome. Hey, in the future, I could just become a panelist years down the line. So after I go through this Wheel of Time experience, who knows?
That's exactly what should happen. I'll, Taylor? make sure to mention that.
Awesome. Well, I wish you both the best of luck. It's been great to kind of get to know you, Matt, and I'm looking forward to see what happens in the future.
Me too, man. I can't wait till we chat again.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Now here's a look at what's to come in episode 7 of the Wheel of Time. With the Dark One touching their dreams and Matt staying behind, have they already lost? What will come of Moiraine's exile? Will they survive the ways? And what awaits them at the Eye of the World? We'll find out this Friday when the next The Wheel of Time episode drops. Don't forget to hashtag your reactions throughout the season, and we'll do our best to feature your comments in next week's episode. And here is what you all had to say. Tyler M. Lawless tweeted, "The Wheel of Time really won me over last night. Book changes don't bother me because my 2 favorite characters have been so well cast in the show, Nynaeve and Siuan." Completely agree, Tyler. The heart of these books has always been its characters, and these actors have won me over and over again. Space Buddha tweeted, "Once again, Alvaro Morte delivered an absolutely incredible performance as Logan. Yeah, I wasn't expecting another memorable Logan moment. Alvaro helped make this one of my favorite episodes." Menung Zuales tweeted, "But honestly, how good was Sophie Okonedo as Siuan? Absolutely incredible performance." Yeah, so true. Sophie Okonedo continued the streak of great performances by great actors. I can't wait to see her again as the Amyrlin. Ray Danvers 21 tweeted, "The Wheel of Time is totally my world." Ray, you and so many new fans across the world who are falling for the Wheel of Time. That's it, my friends. Remember to make sure that we see your reactions across social media. I can't wait to share what you had to say. And be back here next Tuesday for more behind-the-scenes interviews on how it all came together. I'm your host and innkeeper, Matt Hatch. Thank you for joining us inside the Wheel of Time.
Whoa, oh my god! I see the
See you later.
We have to try everything. Drink.
Hello.
This and later.
I don't care about the show. I just want a good blooper reel.
I want to learn science.
You guys are gonna make me look like I'm in the show, right? You're gonna put in the effects. Replace the green. I don't want to look like an asshole here.
Sorry.